We're going to start getting started here as a few more people pop in and out. But it is a huge honor for us to be able to run this program. Rabbi Deutsch has visited us here in Jacksonville. I don't remember exactly, was it last year or the year prior?
Yeah, I
But
think it was last year. I think it was last year. Yeah,
so
maybe a
last
year and a half
year,
ago.
it must have been like, yeah, about a year and a half ago, Rabbi Deutsch came and visited us in Jacksonville. Thanks to a lot of encouragement from my wife, actually. I think you taught her in seminary way
Right.
back when in Yehud. And she told me, if you're going to get someone to speak, you should get Rabbi Deutsch. And the opportunity arose. He came and he spoke with us. And we had amazing feedback from the teens here in Jacksonville. Everybody was like blown away. They really enjoyed it. Um, and now, as everything's gone virtual, it's opened up a lot more opportunities for us to be able to connect with people overseas. So if you guys don't know, Rabbi Deutsch is actually in the Holy Land right now, speaking to us from Eretz Yisrael. So it's more than just a huge honor for us. It's also a big chesed on his part to take out time so late in the night to speak to us, and we're really excited to hear from him. I'm not going to like read the whole bio, but if you guys want to read his bio, you can see he's actually published some books that you can read. I've read through one of the ones that I have here, but definitely I strongly encourage you to look more into it. And maybe at the end of our call, we can talk about how you can kind of connect with him more if you'd like to look into more and learn more Torah from him. He has an amazing WhatsApp group that my wife and I are both members of. We give some daily chizuk based on Chassidus, and I'll turn over the floor if maybe Rabbi Deutsch, you want to just share your story with us, and then maybe we can start hearing some amazing words of wisdom.
All right. Okay, for sure. You guys can hear me okay? Everything's good? Give me a thumbs up, something. Yeah, it's okay? Okay. All right, good. Very good. Shalom, shalom. I'm super happy to be here with you. And thanks, Joey, for bringing me in here. Yeah, it's definitely a huge opportunity to, I don't know, this whole thing. I think something with this whole Zoom thing, I think we have to, I think some of it's going to remain, even post-corona. I think the ability to do this and the opportunity to do this and the way everyone was able to smoothly transition to it, I think we're going to be able to keep something with it alive as well after this is all over, but God willing. But anyway, a little bit about myself. Yeah, so my name is Eli Deutsch. I'm originally from a place called Teaneck, New Jersey. Good Jewish community, and New Jersey was so amazing that I left there approximately 18 years ago, and I made the move to the Holy Land. And there I was, having made the move to the Holy Land, and I'm wandering around the streets of the old city of Jerusalem, and I bump into a few people I know from Toronto, Canada, and me and them get to talking. And with them, there was this other young lady. Me and her get to talking. And what do you know, to make a short story shorter, me and this gal actually end up getting hitched, end up getting married, and we actually stuck around here in Israel. And interestingly enough, we actually now live in a place that's kind of looking over the place where we met. I'm actually speaking to you now from the old city of Jerusalem. Thank God. It's a big opportunity that we're blessed to be blessed to be here and be able to fulfill the verse literally, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah devar Hashem Yerushalayim, that we're able to spread forth Torah from Jerusalem literally throughout the globe. More importantly, though, my story is that when I was growing up, and I grew up with some Jewish background, etc., but also with some questions that when I was growing up, anything I ever heard about Judaism, it was a lot about the what's of Judaism and the hows of Judaism, what to do, how to do it. But like, why on earth should I be involved in this? Why on earth should I care? Why on earth might this Jewish thing actually make a difference to my life? Somehow those whys were always passed over. And so growing up, this bothered me. And so when I had the opportunity, I wanted to check some of this Jewish stuff out for myself. So after high school, I came here to Israel and started searching things out. And this started out as a philosophical pursuit, filled with philosophical questions. Why should I believe in this? Why should I believe in that? Why should I believe that there's a God? Why should I believe God gave the Torah to the Jewish people? Why should I believe in all that stuff about the oral tradition? And I start to actually really search out these questions in a real and meaningful way. And I searched out really more than more than institutions and schools. I really tried to find the people, the rabbis, the teachers who talked about these issues and can really bring them down in a real concrete, rational, and thought out way in a way that it could be truly explained, if there was such an explanation. And thank God, I was blessed to find people who that was their thing, and I connected myself with such people, and tried to do my best to stick around them and to learn from them, and to really understand and ask the questions that I need to ask and get real answers, which was amazing. And so the thing is, though, that as I started to advance in terms of my understanding about these whys, about the basic foundations about Judaism, so as that happened, so my questions got a little bit deeper. My questions got more evolved, and my questions got more to the spiritual aspects of Judaism. Well, for example, why should just different questions about the detail, like why do we do this way at this particular time, and what's the meaningfulness of this, and what's the deeper impact that this has on a spiritual level. Started asking those kind of more evolved questions, and so then that kind of brought me and drew me to more of the Hasidic teachings and more of the Kabbalah kind of teachings, the deeper mystical traditions of Judaism, to understand a little bit why we do the deeper levels of why we do even the simple things that we do in Judaism. So this is what I got passionate about, the whys on a philosophical level and also whys on a spiritual level. And so since then, I've been blessed to be involved in giving some of this stuff over, hopefully. So that's what I find meaningful. So it's those kind of teachings that I like to share. So today, I figured a good topic was to understand the time period that we're in now, between Passover and Shavuot, between the holidays of Pesach and Shavuot, to understand, again, what's the deeper meaning of this time period. And anytime we talk about a time period in Judaism, you have to understand that each time period has its own specific avoda, its own specific personal work that we can be involved with at that particular time. That doesn't mean that you're not able to do certain things at all times. But let me give you an example, okay? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, people know that that's a time where there's a focus on teshuvah, on returning to God, or on returning to one's soul, or returning to one's potential, and a focus on there's this focus on return to self, and just changing ways and things like that. That doesn't mean that you only do it during that time of the year, right? That's a good thing to do any time of the year to make good personal change. But specifically during that time of the year, it's like there's an energy in the year, just like there's seasons. In some countries there's a rainy season, in other countries not a rainy season. For example, in Israel, where I'm sitting right now, there's a rainy season and there's a non-rainy season. That means literally we can go 6 months without seeing any rain, right? Starting from now, we actually just had rain like yesterday, which was and maybe even dropped today, which is actually a little strange. But basically from now till September, we're not going to see rain. It's going to be clear blue skies for most of that time. So other places, just in terms of cold and warm. So there are certain seasons where it's more conducive to a particular focusing in on a particular personal work, right? So Rosh Hashanah is an example. So every time period has a certain focus like that, and so it begs the question: what is the time period we're in now, and what is the focus we're in now? Because if we focus on that particular area in our life, so hopefully things will flow for us. It's a time it's a time to be involved in that with an extra focus, because the time is conducive to achieving in those areas. So what I wanted to discuss with you today is what exactly are we looking to do during this time between Passover and Shavuot? Are we good so far? How are we doing so far? Yeah, okay, all right, cool. By the way, my friends, feel free to chime in if anyone has any questions, thoughts, ideas. If anyone would like to share at any point, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm not really monitoring the chat so much. So if anyone chimes in, I don't know, Joey, if you can ask the question or unmute people or however. Look, I can't see everybody either. I'm on a phone, so just to let you know that.
I'll monitor the chats. If anybody has a question they want to ask, you can throw it in the chat, and I can unmute you at a stopping point.
Okay, perfect. So what's this time period all about? So let's understand one of the deeper ways that we can understand really what all the holidays are about, really anything's all about, is if we look at there's a Kabbalistic secret. If you look at the name of the thing, in the name of the thing lies the essence of the thing, right? We actually see this straight out in the beginning of the Torah. The idea that when God created the world, he created the world with speech. For example, famous verse in the Torah that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That means to say that there's a certain concreteness and realness to this, to speech, that the speech that God spoke, right? Matter of fact, the word in Hebrew to speak in Hebrew is lidaber, which is the same word in Hebrew, basically same root, same letters in Hebrew as the word davar, which means a thing. Meaning to say the speech is at the root of the thing, and the thing is an expression of the speech. So it means to say that the name in Judaism, the Hebrew name of the thing, captures the essence of the thing, right? A matter of fact, how do you say name in Hebrew? Shem, which is related to this, again, the same letters as the word sham in Hebrew, which means there. Because in the name of the thing lies the there of the thing. In the name of the thing lies the purpose of the thing, the goal of the thing, what it's really here for, what it's really all about. And so if I want to understand a deeper element and really essential element of what something is all about, I can look at the name of the thing, right? And so we're going to do that. If we want to understand what the holiday is all about, let's look at the names of the holidays, Pesach and Shavuot, right? We'll get to Shavuot in a minute, but let's start with Pesach, okay? By the way, we're not going to go into this now, but also FYI, this also is the importance of a Jewish name, right? There's an idea that the Jewish name captures a little bit of your purpose or your path here in this world, and it speaks to the essence of who you are or what you're here for, right? Matter of fact, the word for a soul in Hebrew is nishama. Again, those root letters, there's the word sham, which means there, and also again from the word shem, which means the name. So anyway, that's a whole other topic. Maybe we could do that another time, the spirituality and purpose of a Jewish name. But for now, let's go into.
We have a question from the chat. What if something doesn't have a Hebrew name for it?
So good question. That's already going to take us on a tangent. But there is an idea that we can. A lot of times we can see what the root is by even understanding the non-Jewish languages. Meaning, if you go, I don't want to go into a tangent here, but you go back to the times of the Tower of Babel. That's when other languages fragmented off of Hebrew, which means to say that there is an element of this, a flavor of this, really in all other languages. We have to understand it correctly, understand what's the Hebrew root and what comes from outside the Jewish nation. But whatever, I just want to go down that path, which I'm happy to go in, but we're just never going to get to Pesach and Shavuot if we go there right now. So maybe afterwards I can send a message or something. Okay, maybe. Let's see. We'll see. Okay, so the word. So let's take a look at the word for Passover in Hebrew. As we know, it's the Hebrew word Pesach. So Pesach means to pass over, right? And of course, we know the story that right before the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, there's the whole story of the plague of the firstborns, and God passes over the houses of the Jews as He goes and polishes off the firstborn of the Egyptians. So this is where they get the name Passover from, at least on one level, on this simple level. However, like we just mentioned, when any holiday, even in English, here we go. In English, we call it a holiday because it is a holy day, meaning to say that when we're celebrating Pesach and we're celebrating any of the holidays, it's not that we're commemorating something that once was. It's much deeper than that. It's that there's something real going on right now. Right? That's why we call it a holy day, because there's something real happening right now. And so if the holiday is called Pesach, it means that there's a certain passing over even going on every year at this time. And according to the deeper traditions in Judaism, passing over, the concept of Passover is that there is a passing over of levels going on that we're able to experience on Passover, in particular on the first night of Passover and the first 2 nights of Passover, I guess in Florida, but meaning to say that there is, actually no, it would be the first night even over there, everywhere, right? That the idea that on Pesach Seder night, there's an idea of a grand passing over of levels in terms of what a person can experience in their relationship with Hashem, in their relationship with the infinite, right? What I mean by this is that usually the way things normally work is that a person is on a particular level of wherever they are in terms of their relationship with God, in terms of their relationship with Judaism, with Torah, and based on that level that they're at, we experience whatever we experience. However, on Passover night, there's an idea that there is this passing over of levels that we're able to experience something much higher than where we're truly at. So how can we relate to this? So I think a good example is if you've ever, imagine you have, imagine there's this friend of yours, right? Imagine you have this friend of yours that they meet this, let's say a girl, okay? And she meets a guy, right? And you say, and she comes over and she tells you, listen, I met this guy and wow, it is love at first sight. It is love at first sight. And you say, wow, that's amazing. How did you get this feeling? And she says to you, well, I'll tell you. There I was at this party, and I was standing around, and I was looking around the room. And then all the way across the room, there was this guy. And he too was looking around the room. And then right there in the middle, our eyes met, and it was fireworks. Love at first sight. And you say, wow, that's amazing. And what's his last name? And she says, actually, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what his last name is. Not sure. Can you hear the idea that the experience that this girl is having, and maybe also the guy too, the experience that they're having is an experience where they're experiencing like this grand love. Their experience is all the way up here, despite the fact that the reality of their relationship is holding right down here by, I don't know his first name, right? So it doesn't mean to say that their experience and their feelings are artificial, that they're fake. No, their experiences are real. You can't deny it. That is what she's feeling. But is that really where her relationship is holding with this guy? No. The relationship where the relationship is holding is like, I just met you yesterday. I don't know you, right? So then how do we explain that? How do we explain that phenomenon? So Kabbalistically, there's a whole concept here called an awakening from above. But the idea is that sometimes the way relationships begin is with a grand, again, what Kabbalah calls an awakening from above, meaning to say you have a high experience despite the fact that you're not actually holding at that level in your life, in your relationship, in whatever it is that you're doing. So you have this awesome high. But here's the thing. What goes up must come down, right? And despite the fact that you have that high experience, bottom line is you're not really holding in that place. You're not really holding on that level with that person. And so what always has to happen is that you come down to reality, right? Now, society, Hollywood tells you that when you come down, Hollywood tells you, oh, well, before you fell in love, now you fell out of love. You got to leave that and then wait for Cupid to shoot you again, so you fall in love again, right? But really, Judaism and really anyone who knows anything about any relationships or is at all reasonable can tell you, no. Look, you had there was this high, and that's a beautiful experience, but you're not really holding there. So that was that was the honeymoon phase. That was the initial an initial attraction, a romance, which is beautiful and awesome. But then you come down from that, and then the question is, now what do you do, right? Now what do you do? Now hopefully what we want, right? And ideally, if we're going to build this into a real relationship that's going to last, is that we're going to hopefully remember a little bit of that excitement of the beginning, a little bit of that love at first sight feeling, a little bit of that excitement and inspiration and burst of clarity. And then when we're holding right back down at, I just met you yesterday, we're going to say, you know what? This could be something that's worthwhile. This could be a relationship that's worth pursuing. And we go day in and day out, working to build that relationship in a real way, in a way that our actions have real results in terms of how that relationship grows and how that relationship goes. And day in and day out, we hopefully build it up until hopefully we're holding right back up there like we were at the beginning, but now it's based on something that we built. Now it's real. Now it's concrete. based on real effort and choices that I made. And there were times where she maybe was going to be upset, or he maybe was going to be upset, and they were able to cool their tempers down, or they were able to be giving in particular situations. They were able to stand, all these different things that come up in real life, right? And then to go ahead and we commit and then follow up, and then in the nitty gritty of life, make real choices, and excuse me, and then we come out hopefully back up in that high. But now that high is real, and it's yours, and it's something that's been acquired by you based on the real deep choices you made in real life, right? This is the idea, just like we have this in real life, just like we have this in real relationships in our lives, the same story holds true for our relationship with Hashem as well, right? Pesach, Passover, there's a huge passing over of levels. There's this high that a person's able to experience, it doesn't matter where they're holding. We're able to, according to Kabbalah, the gates are open for us to go ahead and experience a grand high. But what happens from that, after that, what goes up must come down. Come back down to earth. And now the question is, okay, am I going to go ahead and build myself up to having that relationship with Hashem? And that means going into the nitty gritty of who I am, the nitty gritty of the intricacies of my midot, of my characteristics, and the way I respond to things, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to talk more about this in a minute, but we go ahead and we build ourselves hopefully back up into the time of Shavuot. Now, let's understand, what is Shavuot? Shavuot's a very interesting thing. Shavuot, on the one hand, we know it's the day we receive the Torah, right? And that's the big celebration. But then hold on a second. What's the name that we have for the holiday Shavuot? The word Shavuot in Hebrew, I don't know if anyone knows, but I'll just say it. But the word Shavuot means weeks, 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 which sounds very strange, because here you have Torah Day, which you'd think like, woohoo, it's a big thing. You'd think you'd call it Torah Day. And then sometimes in prayers, we do refer to it that way. But the name of the holiday that we use is Shavuot, weeks, meaning referring to the previous 7 weeks from Passover to Shavuot. So why do we call Torah Day previous 7 weeks? It sounds very anticlimactic. It's like, imagine you get to Rosh Hashanah, instead of calling it Rosh Hashanah, the new year, head of the new year, instead of that, you'd call it previous 364 days of the year. That sounds pretty anticlimactic, don't you think? And yet here, that's exactly what we're doing on the holiday of Shavuot. Right? And so the answer is very simple. According to everything we just said, it makes total sense, right? Because the whole idea is that that Torah Day, the holiday of Shavuot, is only going to be Torah Day for you to the extent that you open yourselves up and build yourselves up over the period of these 7 weeks leading up to it. To the extent we go ahead and build ourselves up, it's that extent of the experience we're going to have on the holiday of Shavuot. It's telling you that, look, unlike Passover, which was a burst of inspiration, a passing over of levels that we can experience a high, or experience a moment, or experience inspiration, experience a certain level of clarity, perhaps, right? Even if we're not holding on that level, Shavuot is totally based on these weeks leading up to it, right? It's totally based on how much, what work am I doing on myself? How much am I opening up myself? How much am I trying to better my emotional responses and my characteristics, right? And so we should understand a little bit about, okay, so what kind of work exactly am I supposed to be doing on myself during this particular time between Passover and Shavuot? And so for that, let's understand a little bit deeper what Passover was all about exactly. Because there's a certain idea that in a certain way, the Sfirat Omer, these 7 weeks are kind of an extension and a deepening of the Passover idea. So what was Passover all about? So the idea is, again, that Passover is all about, let's go into the motif and the theme of passing over. But let's look at ourselves now, right? So that many times, again, people talk about Passover like it's about freedom, right? The Jewish people are freed from Egypt, etc. However, anytime we see a story in the Torah, we have to know that the Torah is not here to teach us Jewish history, right? Now, we might get some Jewish history from reading the Torah and the stories and all of that, and that's wonderful and fine, but that's a bonus. That's not what it's here for. The idea of the Torah is that it's a spiritual book, right? It's about us living out our soul potential. So anything that's in there is somehow going to be for us to live out our spiritual potential. It's not just to teach us history. So the history aspect, the fact that I got some Jewish history from it's a bonus. But what it's really here for is for my my own. It's a Jewish spiritual self-help book, right? And so that means then when I understand it in this way, then I can read myself into the book, right? So for example, when we talk about the Jewish people being in Egypt, so let's think about it in our own lives, right? There's an idea that in a certain respect, let's understand what Egypt is all about, right? Egypt, how do we say Egypt in Hebrew? In Hebrew, Egypt is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is from the Hebrew word Meitzarim, right? Maybe you're familiar with this word from that song. Kol olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, right? Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is from the word tsar, right? Tsar means narrow. So what's Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim is a place of narrowness. It's a place of constriction, boundaries, borders, constriction, that which is holding me back. And so when the Jewish people were in Egypt, it wasn't just that they were in a physical servitude. It was a servitude on all levels: physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, right? And then the Jewish people, they bust out of Egypt, and then and let's see how that reflects in our own lives, right? The idea is that we all have Mitzrayims in our life. We all have our own personal Egypt. We all have our own personal boundaries, borders, constrictions, that which is holding us back on all sorts of levels: physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, right? We have certain things, certain messages that we hear that influence us and make us perceive things in a certain way, certain philosophies that went into our minds, into the back of our minds as if they're natural and normal, certain influences from Hollywood and the movies and the media and all of that kind of stuff that they're doing their best to shape the way we think, right? We also have emotional stuff. What do we pick up in our homes or wherever else? And so maybe we hear a message and then I perpetually start to repeat it to myself because I heard some message from whoever might have been speaking to me, and maybe that was positive, but also maybe that was not as perfect and positive. And so we get into a headspace. We get into a place that could be potentially constrictive. And we all have these different things that happen to us in our life, whether they be traumas or influences or just things that limit us and constrict us and make us think in a certain way or act in a certain way. And so the next the idea here is that what we want to do first and foremost, and this is perhaps one reason why the story of the Jewish people leaving Egypt is so emphasized in the Torah, is because this is the beginning where everything starts. If we want to go out and live out our lives in a real and meaningful way, it begins with breaking out of our programming. It begins with becoming personally free. And so this is the idea: when the Jewish people leave Egypt, where do they go? They go to the desert, right? What's in the desert? Nothing. There's nothing. It's barren. There's nothing there, right? And this is the idea. The idea is to break out of our personal Egypt and to go to that personal place of desert, that personal place of nothingness, of openness, right? That place of true open-mindedness, right? Not the open-mindedness of your university campus where if you say something against what they have to say, they will destroy you. That's not the openness I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the true capacity to open oneself to say, hey, maybe, let's hear this other aspect. Let's hear this teaching. Let's hear this philosophy. Let's consider this, right? Or about Judaism also, right? I grew up as maybe hearing certain messages, but hold on, let's investigate. Maybe there's some truth here, to be able to open oneself up and to get into a personal place of desert. And then it's from that place. Where's the Torah given, by the way? Given in the desert, right? Why? Because to the extent a person makes themselves desert-like, the extent a place truly open, it's to that extent they're able to receive the Torah, really any new message, right? Any new message can be received only to the extent that we open ourselves up to actually hearing it for what it is intending to say, right? And so this is the idea of what the concept of Passover was all about, and what deeper freedom is all about. We're not just talking about freedom from chains and things like that. We're talking about also an inner freedom, And so then when we take this big idea, Passover is about a burst of that kind of freedom. But then what we do is we take during this time of Sfira to Omer, we're taking the mass moment of freedom of Passover, and we want to take it into the nitty gritty of who we are, into different aspects of ourselves, characteristics. How do I respond in this particular circumstance? Why do I respond this way in this particular circumstance? Do I have to be this kind of person in my social group, in my little group of 5 friends? Why am I the one who's always being the sarcastic one? And everyone's kind of looking for me to make a snarky remark, or I kind of feel that that's how it is, or a part of me is waiting to be that person, to fill that role in my, you hear all this is like somehow I started playing a character. What if I don't want to be that anymore? What if that's not serving me? Can I free myself out of that? Can I step outside of that? I'm telling you, if you try to do it, it'll feel very uneasy. If you, instead of making the sarcastic remark, you decide, I don't want to be that anymore, you stop making that sarcastic remark, then you do it again, then you do it again. There's going to be certain uneasiness going on over here. But then also, if you're really ready to make that step, it's going to be very liberating as well. I don't have to play that character. I don't have to be imprisoned in that mode. I don't have to respond in that way. Someone's talking nasty to me, I don't have to yell back at the same volume as they are, right? Someone thinks about a certain thing about me, and it's, it's not accurate. I can live with that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me. I'm okay with that. They can think what they think, and I'm not even going to try to control their thoughts. I'm going to be okay with the fact that they think something wrong about me. Okay. Right? All of these things have to do with going into ourselves and our emotions and liberating ourselves. And it's this kind of emotional health and emotional intelligence and character refinement and personal development that we are working on during this time, from Passover to the holiday of Shavuot. And the idea is why? To refine ourselves, that we should be the master over our own characteristics and emotions, rather than our emotions and characteristics being master over us. And when I have personal ownership in this way, then I have all of my different characteristics at my fingertips, and I can decide when to employ which one. And that means that then when the Torah day comes along, I'm able to take the Torah and actually utilize it, because the Torah is going to tell me, okay, listen, in this particular situation, go in this path. In this particular situation, maybe hold back over here, maybe go forward over there. And so if I'm a master of myself and I have personal ownership of myself, then I'm able to go ahead and do that very naturally and very easily. If I haven't first gained that autonomy over myself, I'm going to still be in some of these struggles when the Torah is trying to get me to proactively grow. If I haven't first acquired an ownership of myself, so then the foundations haven't really been in place in order to do that in such a strong way, right? So it's like the Torah, it's as if the Torah is trying to build a beautiful building, but if the foundations of being a human being aren't in place, so then all the beautiful Torah you want to build on top are going to be a little bit different. It's going to be much more difficult to do that, right? And so what this time is all about is about building those foundations of being a human being, right? About being a human being means having the ability to, despite the fact that I might feel emotionally, I want to live, that I want to react in a certain way, nevertheless, I'm able to go ahead and pull myself back from that feeling and say, you know what? I'm feeling a draw to do something, but I think there's a higher way of being. And so even though it's a little difficult for me not to follow that pull that's within me, I'm going to step outside of myself. I'm going to free myself from myself, and I'm going to choose a better way, even though it might not be my first nature, my first desire. This is the idea of stepping into humanhood, right? An animal follows its instinct, follows its inclinations, follows its I don't know if you call it emotions, but let's say instincts, right? Also has emotions, perhaps. But the idea is that the human being is the one who's able to sense that, feel that, also has that, but I'm able to also choose something beyond that, to be a bigger person. I'm able to, like they say, take the high road, be the adult in the room, whatever it might be. So this is the idea. This is the idea of what we are building on at this particular moment, right? And to the extent we go ahead and build that up, then we're open. Then when Shavuot comes around, we're a beautiful vessel to pour that Torah into, and then we can go ahead and follow that up in a very strong and natural way. Tov, my friends, questions, thoughts, ideas. This is I don't know if this is this speaking to you? Is this
We had a question earlier from Brandon. He wanted to know. He said that you said your name has meaning to your essence. He said that he's heard that before. He wanted to know what the phrase was in Hebrew.
the phrase? I'm sorry, the phrase that which phrase? Apologies.
Let me see if I can unmute Brandon. Brandon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want to ask your question again?
Yeah, I heard a similar idea to what you're talking about, that when you're named, you're given some kind of like essence, like ability based on what that name means or refers to. And so this person told me it was like a Hebrew phrase, like something kishmo, like your name. And so I was just wondering if that was like a phrase or an idea or something that was common. But I'm not sure. I have no idea.
There might be some phrase that's like that. There might be a phrase that's like that when someone does something that their name describes, then there's some kind of phrase like that, which is skipping my mind right now also. But kishmo kainhu, something like that. But that's when, if that's what you're talking about, that's when a person does something that their name is a description of. So, for example, what would be a good example of that? Okay, let's say the name Devorah. Okay, Devorah in Hebrew actually means a bee, B-E-E, a bee. So, like, if a Devorah might say something that's like piercing and sting, and then you'll be like, okay, come on, that she's being like her name. You know what I mean? So that's what it sounds like to me. But if there's another phrase, then I don't know. I'm not catching it. Sorry.
Okay. Maybe that gives some people some time to kind of compile their thoughts. One of the things you mentioned was kind of this idea that during this period from Passover to Shavuot, that we're trying to, let's say, reclaim that initial high, that high level that we were given on Seder night, and we're trying to build back up to it, or possibly even higher, whatever level we can attain up to Shavuot, by refining our character, by working on ourselves, by removing some of those maybe barriers that we've placed on ourselves, or externally have been placed on ourselves, or even internally, whatever that was, doing that work of kind of freeing ourselves from our own, self-imposed or, possibly outside imposed limitations. How does one go about, practically speaking, kind of like taking an accounting or figuring out, like, what do I as an individual need to work on? Because obviously there's vast things that people can work on. How do I figure out, me personally, what do I need to work on? How do I get to that level that I need to reach on Shavuot?
Okay, so I would say a couple of things, a couple of options, and hopefully this will be helpful to some people. Number one is just simply personal preference. Whatever you feel you're up to. If you have something that, like, there's something nagging you, you may get a little voice in your head which is telling you, like, I should really change X, Y, or Z thing, and you're kind of like on the brink of like that's kind of the next thing to change in your life, or something to change in your life, and you kind of have that, hearing that within yourself, and you're kind of like, I could change that, but if I do that, it's going to be real pain, and I don't know if I want to, and going back and forth in that way. So it's a good sign that perhaps is one of the things, that's maybe the next rung on the ladder that of life for you. That's one simple answer. Another answer could be, and this would not apply to everyone at every time, I don't think, but sometimes in life, Hashem sets it up that we have a certain characteristic in our lives that's causing us problems in numerous scenarios. So, for example, imagine a guy who, because of his anger, so his wife's leaving him, he just got fired from his job, his kids hate his guts, it's like is hitting him because of a certain trait. It's hitting him from this situation, that situation, that situation. It could be like God's putting a big fat target on that, like uproot this, you know what I mean? So it could very well be that that's something that a person can be focusing on. There's another idea, just in general, sometimes when a similar conversation can be had about, sometimes we talk in Judaism about this idea that everyone is here to fix a particular thing, is here to do a certain tikkun, to rectify, to perfect, to fix a certain something. And so sometimes people ask, okay, well, how do I figure out what that thing is for me? So there's a couple of answers that are given to that. And so it's going to be, it'll be related to your question. Answer number one is, that thing that you really have, that positive thing that you really want to do, that you want to do like much more than other people want to do. So like, for example, everyone says like, hey, we should help old people who can't help themselves. Everyone says that, but then how many people are actually gung-ho about doing it, right? That's a much smaller amount of people. Everyone's like, yeah, they should do that. Well, who's they, right? So when you find the thing that's you're the they, there's a good sign that that's something that you're here to do, at least at that particular time. However, there's also the flip side as well. That thing that you really have a hard time with, that you have an extra hard time with than other people. It's a good sign that that is something for you to work on. That is something for you to fix in this world and in this life. Let me give you an example. When I was in high school, there was a guy that I knew, that this guy, he could not walk out of a 7-Eleven without taking a bag of Doritos under his leather jacket. Couldn't do it, right? And so, look, it could be many people have a desire to steal. It could be many people walk into 7-Eleven, see the guy in the back, not looking, and think, oh, I could really just take this bag of chips and run. But how many people actually do that? And to up the ante, how many people feel like they just can't not do that, right? So it could be that maybe at least at this stage in this particular individual's life, his thing to do was if he would find the thing, what is the thing that is, I have a crazy desire for that's much more than normal. That's a good thing that a person needs to uproot. And I don't know if that's something specifically for the time of Sfirat HaOmer, but that in general is something that's a focus for us to work on, because think about what the results are when you go ahead and uproot that thing that you had such difficulty with. Can you hear the idea that you now become the shining light for that good trait that you acquire when you uproot the negative trait that was behind it? You become the inspirational speaker for that particular issue, right? And you become the guy who they point to, who someone could point to and say, well, listen, this guy, you know what he was doing when he was in high school? This guy, forget about you might have some honesty issues, but this guy, he was pocketing, he couldn't walk out of 7-Eleven without pocketing Doritos. Now he dots every I, he crosses every T, he's totally honest, to the book, straight and narrow. This, like, you become like, and if he can do it, I can do it too. You become that guy, right? And so sometimes Hashem will set us up with the background being a stage of darkness, stage of difficulty, stage of struggle. I find myself in a swamp for a particular issue, but can you hear the idea that there's nothing that comes into this world that's ultimately for the bad? And so it means to say then that it's all a stage, it's all a setup job for us to bring grand light to that particular area and arena of our life, right? And the same goes for anything in our life. The same goes for the difficulties we've had, the challenges, the struggles, the criticisms, the traumas, all of that stuff. If we can, at some point, everybody at their own time, people, it depends on the level of growth, it depends on the level of maturity, it depends on age, everything at its own thing. Certain things that were more serious and more severe, not the time till later perhaps. But God willing, when we grow out from that place, we become someone who's so much more concrete and stronger and can now speak to, and not only have we helped ourselves, but we can also turn around and help other people who came from that particular difficult spot that we find ourselves in right now. And And so this is the idea ultimately of really taking something that's on the negative and flipping it on its head. And so something to think about over the time, over these times of Sfirat Omer, of finding, okay, what are those emotions that I'm broken in? What are those? What's that emotional intelligence that what's my go-to autopilot response when I'm uncomfortable, when I don't get what I want? How do I respond then? Is it with yelling? Is it with guilting? Is it with crying and guilting people into it? You know, what manipulations am I using? Can I become more healthy in those areas? Can I go ahead and trade in these negative responses and defense mechanisms for something more healthy and more refined and more dignified and with more integrity? I don't know. Just some thoughts.
A quick question. In terms of the names thing, you were connecting Shavua and Pesach. How do you connect the name Sfirat HaOmer into all of that too?
Okay. So Sfirat HaOmer. So let's understand Let's understand at least one concept about it. The concept of Sfirat HaOmer is the time. Sfira means counting, right? So counting the Omer. But during the times of back in the temple days, they were bringing an offering. They were bringing an offering in the Beit HaMikdash, and throughout this time, the offering that was brought was barley. We'll explain what that means, barley. And then on the holiday of Shavuot, that's when there was an offering that involved wheat. And in the rabbinic teachings, wheat and barley have certain significance. Barley is what was considered animal food. Okay, barley, don't get me wrong, barley and cholent is awesome. Maybe that's my animal side of me speaking. I like barley, don't get me wrong, but barley was animal food. Wheat, we make bread out of, also matzah, that was considered to be human food, which further expresses actually the idea we were trying to say over here, right? Which is that this is a time, Sfirat Omer is a time from going from the animal side of ourselves and freeing ourselves to become more of a human being. And so the idea was, okay, during this time where we are obviously we're trying to grow out of our animal selves, right? Our animal selves, again, being reactive, just being into our autopilot, not just reacting as opposed to taking it, right? And so that's the animal side. So during this time, we're trying to grow into a human being. And then on the time of Shavuos, we're holding at the level of human being. That's when we get the Torah to go up the next level towards to be more Torah observant, to be more of in the Jewish realm, right? Interestingly enough, in a similar manner, there's an idea that some Jews like to say, which I think is very good and accurate, that a lot of this kind of stuff about getting beyond our base desires is spoken about in Buddhism, other cultures also, I'm sure, but Buddhism and the like. And so there's a Jewish idea that really essentially where Buddhism ends is where Judaism begins, meaning to say that all of this stuff about personal freedom and about being able to get outside of my base desires and instincts and inclinations and things that are pulling me down and getting above my ego and beyond my ego and all of that stuff, when we achieve that, like achieving that is then like, okay, that's a beautiful foundation to now build Judaism and Torah upon, right? And so this is the principle in Judaism, like it says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah, that being a human being is first step, and then the concept of Torah is the step is built upon that, right? So it doesn't mean wait to be a human being until you start keeping Torah, but it means just in terms of philosophically and rationally, how it would make sense is first become a human being, right? First be a master of yourself, and then go ahead and go to your destiny, which is to live out your Jewish self, your Jewish soul. Cool?